Hello, good evening, guys. Once again, you're welcome. So we might say that we can start with today's presentation. As usual, we always have the disclaimer, which warns us about the risks involved in trading. So you should always be reminded and be aware that there's some risks. So when you want to trade, you should know how to go about it. So we are going to look at fundamental analysis, sentimental analysis, and then technical analysis. We'll start with the fundamental. Now, as I said on the other day, I think on Saturday, fundamental analysis deals with economic and political activities. So basically, news surrounding a country. And those who are good in economics can be quite good in analyzing these news events or these economic activities. But nonetheless, even if you are not good in economics, we have platforms or websites that we can access this information, and it makes it a bit easier for us to understand what it means, what these information means. So some of the fundamental analysis indicators that we have the GDP, which is the gross domestic product. Usually, each country has a GDP. I think it's a news that is released almost every 3 months, and it measures all the goods and services produced within a period in an economy. Now, the GDP itself, knowing it itself, doesn't really give much, but in terms of the rate of change, if you compare on a period basis, like the first 3 months to the next 3 months, if you compare, it gives an idea of what is happening. If it is increasing, it tells you that the economy of a country is growing, and if it's decreasing, it tells you that it is shrinking. And if the economy of a country is shrinking, it has an effect on its currency, the value of its currency. And if it's gaining, it also has an effect on the country's currency. So that is for the GDP. Interest rate too is also one major news that you can rely on in terms of your fundamental analysis. Now, when an interest rate is increased, when the governor of a country, the central bank of a country increase interest rate, what it tells traders is that investors will definitely want to put in money in that country because they want to invest because there is a high interest rate, so they would like to put their money in that country. So thereby they will be buying that country's currency to invest, and that would increase the value of that country's currency. So high interest rates is good news for the country and has an effect on the country's currency. So the higher the interest rates, the more likely investors will get that currency and invest in that country. And then that will boost the currency value. And in terms of trading, we also look at the currency pairs, and the stronger ones are the ones that are bought, and then the weaker ones are sold, basically. Now, the next one we'll look at is the NFP. Now, the NFP is one major news event in the US, and it caused a whole lot of moves in the market. Usually, traders take time and then wait to get the NFP news to trade. We have people who only trade NFP because it's one of the biggest news in Forex. And when you get NFP, some can make so much money that they only trade only the NFP and then they don't do the other stuff. Now, what is NFP? NFP basically is data points or statistics that is released by the U.S. Labor and Statistics Department, the Bureau, U.S. Bureau of Labor and Statistics. They release this news event of NFP every first Friday of every month. So it is on month-to-month basis. Unless there is a holiday of some sort, then it's either released earlier or after. but usually it's the first Friday of every month. And the time that is being released is around 12:30 GMT. That is using the Ghana time is 12:30. Now, what does the NFP hold? The information that the NFP brings, it tells us about new jobs that have been added, and these jobs are only related to jobs that are not relating to farm. So, like agricultural jobs are not kind of taken into consideration. So, any farm-related jobs are not taken into consideration. That's why it's called NFP, which the full name is non-farm payroll. So, it's excluding those working in the farm sector. And it also gives information on unemployment rate in the US. It also gives information on the average hourly earnings of workers. It also gives information about the previous month's NFP. Now, what traders do is when traders get this information, now if there are more jobs added in the US on month-to-month basis, what it means is that there will be more people working and more people will be earning money. And the more people earn money, the more they buy goods and services and they spend. And that increases the country's currency value. So that is how NFP is interpreted. If there are more jobs added, it's good news for the US dollar. And usually NFP affects only US or mostly US dollar related pairs. So pairs like Euro USD, Odd USD, CAD USD, USD JPY, these are pairs that NFP affects. So that's that for NFP. Now we also have imports and exports. Now, if a country exports more, it means it generates a lot of revenue. If there are more exports, it means it generates a lot of revenue and a lot of foreign exchange come in. And that also increases the value of that country's currency. Now in Ghana here, we do more of imports, so that is also something that is affecting our currency because we import more than we export. But if it's the other way around, then our currency value will be increased. Another thing that we can look at in fundamental analysis is political news. Now, political news events can also cause serious changes in price in the Forex market. Political news could be change of presidency or a president saying something bad, which is going to have an effect on how investors feel about our country, and that also can cause um, price movements in the forex market. Now we also have some source of the fundamental news, some websites that we get fundamental news. Some of them have their apps you can download on your phone, and some you have to use the browser to visit. We have Forex Factory, Daily FX, Investing.com, MyFSbook. MyFSbook has an app. Investing.com has an app. Forex Factory do not have, so that one we visit through the browser. Now, I want to share with you an example of political news causing price change in the Forex market. Now, when we look at this slide, we realize this is a chart on the British pound and then the Japanese yen pair. Now, there was a political news that was released, and it was basically when the Great Britain or England wanted to leave the EU. Now, rumors of that started around in 2015 around August thereabouts. And I think the actual news came out, or they came out to talk about it in 2016. But the rumors of it started in 2015 around August. And you could see what happened to price. Now, because the issue is in the long term, if England leaves the EU, in the long term, it might be good for them because they will stop paying certain money they were paying to the EU. But in the medium short term, it was a bad news because of certain economic activities that were not going to help them because people were moving from other countries coming in to work and um, generate revenue in England. And because of this, investors thought that, okay, this is going to prevent a lot of people coming in to work and thereby boosting the economy or growing the economy. And then you can see how price dropped. If you should measure this happened over, this is the monthly chart. When we go further, I'll show you the different charts we have, but this is the monthly chart. And you can see we have like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, about 14 months. So if you are patient enough and you trade the monthly cycle, but myself, I can't trade the monthly. I'm not that patient to wait for 14 months. But this is quite an example for you. If you're able to wait, this move is around almost 7,000 pips. And you can imagine if you entered a trade, if you were aware of this and you entered a trade earlier on, 7,000 pips. If you used what we talked about on our last webinar, if you use a standard lot, which means you are earning $10 per pip, and it's 7,000 times 10, you're going to make out of this move, you're going to make around $70,000. If you used a mini lot, then that is $1 per pip, and that would be $7,000 just from one trade and holding it for that period for this 14 months. So this is an example of how news events can cause moves in the market. Now, I'd also like to share with you how we read news events from one of these websites. I would like to use the Forex Factory. So let me share a news screen with you guys. So this is Forex Factory. That's one place that we source news events. And usually in this session, that's where the news events are. Now today there was no news event, so none is here. But if I skip to, let's say, tomorrow, now I have set mine. There are some settings you can do so that you get only, if you come here, if you click on the filter, we have several categories. We have the high impact, medium impact, low impact, and this one is like there's not any impact at all. Now I have set mine to only getting high impact and medium impact news. The reason being that the low impact ones do not really cause much change in the forex market, but it's only the high and medium ones that usually cause some significant change in the market. So if you look here tomorrow, there is a news on monetary policy meeting, and it affects the currency pair, the Australian dollar. Now, if I can go further, yes. So on, I think Wednesday, there are quite some news. We have the core retail sales news, which will affect the US dollar, and some news also affect it. So on this side, you get to see the news that are coming, and then we have forecasted metrics or forecasted, how do you call it, forecasted values. Now, what happens is that to make it easier for anyone to get it and trade, you so that you don't really need to understand the economics of it. how they made it is that usually, if the actual should be released on the set time and date. Now, if the actual value is more than the forecasted value, in some of the cases, if the actual value is more than the forecasted value, it will cause some sort of price movement in the forex market. If it's also less than the forecasted value, it will also cause some movement in the forex market. If it's just the same, then it's just as expected. So there wouldn't be much um, change in the forex market. Now, this button here helps you to at least understand what each of them talks about. Now, if I should click, let's say for this one, GBP, if I should click on it, tells us that it measures the change in price of goods and services purchased by consumers. And now your actual greater than forecast is good for the currency. So if the actual is bigger, then it means it's positive news for the currency per GBP. And then based on that, you can trade having this information. And what happens here is that usually if it's good news, it is color coded in green. And if it's bad, like if the metric is bad or it's bad for the currency, then the color is red. So that's also an easier way for us to know what it means instead of being someone who has a PhD in economics. So this is one of the sources of site that we get news from. Okay. So we can go on. So now we are moving to sentimental analysis. So we are now on sentimental analysis. Now, sentimental analysis deals with gauging the feel of other traders, like it's basically more of an emotional or psychological state. It's more of a broader picture. Sentimental analysis concentrates on indicating or measuring the overall psychology and emotional state of all participants in the forex market. And this kind of analysis strives to quantify what percentage of forex market participants are bullish or bearish. So it's more like a general picture, knowing how traders are trading or how traders feel for a particular pair. Now, some of the indicators that we use in terms of sentimental analysis, we have the commitment of traders report. That is one that is used. And we have IG client sentiment report. That is one that is used. I'm going to share with you those reports and how we go about it. Okay, sure. So now with the IG client sentiment report, now it tells you the general feel of traders. So you can look at the left side. It tells you the pair and how traders are going about it. If you take a pair like USD CHF, you realize a lot of traders are buying or are long on that pair. And the blue means those buying, and then the red means those selling. So if you take a pair, you could see that traders are more buying on a certain pair and selling less. So that also gives you a general idea of how traders are going about it. And if that is also in tune with your own analysis, then you can go ahead with it. So this is the IG client sentiment report, which tells how traders are actually trading. Now, the other one was the commitment of traders report. Okay, sure. The commitment of traders report is a report that is from the Commodity Futures Trading Commission. And we usually go to that site. This report is released almost every week. And when we go to the site, we scroll down to a section that is titled Current Legacy Reports. And the one that we usually use is the Chicago Mercantile Exchange. That's what we usually use. and we use the short format so that it's easier for us to go through. If you should click on that, it opens the report for us. Now, the easier approach is we find the currency pair we want to try to analyze and look for sentiments. So to find, let me just do this, Control F, and then find GBP. Okay, so over here, you have GBP, that is the Great British Pound. Then I'm going to yeah. So basically, what it tells us that it tells you those going. We have the non-commercial, commercial, and the total of all traders what they are doing. For the long, it tells you the value of those who are long and those who are short. That is those who are selling. Now, usually, what we do is when we look at this report, we try to find the ones that have extreme values. That is the difference between the long and the short on each case. Or you can look at the total to be precise on it. If there's an extreme difference, it also tells you where traders are actually going and where you can also bank your money on. So basically, this is the commitment of traders report. You can find each pair. Let's check euro. Yeah, euro also has it over here. Those going long, those going short. That is non-commercial. The commercial means those in the big institutions, the banks, yeah, and the hedge funds, what they are doing. And then the non-commercial are retail traders. That's individuals. What we do. So if you see that there's an extreme difference in the two, that also gives an indication of what you can trade on. Okay, so let's go back to the slide. So that's for sentimental analysis. It just tells you the general picture, how many people are buying, how many people are selling, and stuff. The next one is the technical analysis. Now, with technical analysis, most traders focus much on technical analysis, and myself, I do focus much on technical analysis. So we'll be going deeper in technical analysis. I think from our next meeting, or yeah, or probably the following one. Technical analysis is when you look at price chart and you analyze the price, how price movement is happening, and there are some tools or ideas that are used in technical analysis. We have use plain charts, what we call price action or naked forex. When we say naked forex, it doesn't mean that someone is naked in the forex. It just means that you're analyzing the pure price movement without using any additional help of indicators. And we have principles such as support and resistance, candlestick patterns, chart patterns, trend lines, and channels. All these will be going through in our subsequent webinars. Fibonacci retracement and extension levels, technical indicators. So when we say someone is using price action or doing trading with naked forex, it means the person is not using any technical indicators. These indicators are kind of programmed in a way that they also help you to tell what price is going. But people tend not to use them in terms of those who deal in price action and naked forex. I do price action actually, but I also know how to use some of the indicators. So I'll also share that with you. And then you can see over here, there's an example of how technical analysis is done, looking at the charts itself, drawing lines, and trying to identify where price will move next before you make a trade. So that is that with technical analysis. But we are going to go deeper in technical analysis. This is just to introduce you and give you a face value of how it is and how you're going to approach it. Now, someone will ask, which type of analysis for Forex trading is best? And the straightforward answer is none. The best is to try to use all three. Best is to try to use all three. And most traders fail to use all three. I myself, I hardly check sentimental analysis. I'm mostly on technical. I spend majority of my time on technical, and then once in a while I check on fundamentals. Basically, I check the news to see um, those news that is going to affect the pairs I want to trade, and then I know what to do, either to trade them or either to leave those ones out. So ideally, you have to use all three. And then we can recap. Technical analysis is studying current price movement on a chart, while fundamental analysis is a look at how a country's economy is doing. Now, if the economy is good, it means it's good for the currency. If it's bad, it means bad news for the currency. And then you can trade as such. Now, sentimental analysis determines whether the market is bullish or bearish. As we learned in terms of the terms, I hope you guys understand the terms bullish and bearish. And that also helps you to analyze the market and know where to go. So this statement says fundamental factors shape sentiment, while technical analysis help us visualize that sentiment and apply a framework to create a trading plan. What this is saying is that you basically have to try and fuse all three types of analysis before you make a trade. Basically, that is that. Like I said, today is going to be a very short one, so we'll be ending soon. Thank you guys for joining and have a good evening.